We were moving towards spring, and then we got another cold snap. Last night was quite low. I think it was a low of around 22 or 24 Fahrenheit here. But I've set in motion a project, like I tend to do, a slight variation on the theme every year, of compost heating in a season extension space. So this is the 4-panel, cattle panel high tunnel that is down by our road, so please excuse the cars as they drive by. This has been set up to be a compost heating space for seed starting and for propagating roots, and this is the first I'm going in there this morning before the sun starts to hit it. So it's a question of what sort of temperatures did this space maintain during the cold last night. The door frame on this broke this winter, so we're using a temporary solution. This was Juan's idea. We like to use binder clips for everything. It's a two-handed thing. Probably a better way to do this. The better way is to rebuild the door, but for now. So here's the interior of this space, and I'll explain all this stuff in a moment, what we're up to in here, how we're using this space this season. And I can just say from direct experience for myself, it feels like it has not frozen in here. It's quite a bit above freezing. This is our compost heater on the west end. I have documented this a bunch of times in the past, so I'll link throughout the video to how this was built. I also recorded how I assembled it this season, so stick around to the end for a montage on how this was all put together. But this went online a few days ago, and the first thing I want to do is get a temperature probe in it and see what this mass on the west end is radiating. So this reads not too far off from 0 degrees from where it was stored overnight, and this mass on the west end of this high tunnel is continually radiating the temperature that it's getting to, which looks to be roughly 110 Fahrenheit or 42, 44-ish centigrade. Really nice temperature. Definitely a nice temperature for this whole mass to be radiating, especially on a cold night. And you can see what we have on top right here. There's 2 different containers. These are both of root cuttings. This is of shipmast black locust we've talked about before, propagating, as well as sea kale. These are leftover roots from our shipping season, and I put them on here overnight. Oh, that is toasty. That's one way to know if it's working or not, is if it was well below freezing the night before, is the top of your compost heating system teeming with really active worms, and if so, it's warm enough. So I don't even need to have, I was going to put a temperature logger and all that kind of stuff, but I can just look at the worms and look at the pill bugs and say it's warm enough. So we've got these different zones in here. The edge of this will be really nice for bottom heat warmth of stimulating roots to form calluses. The very center of this could be used for something like helping to sprout turmeric or ginger, or starting tomatoes and peppers. If we dug in a little and settled, that would make it even warmer. You can see the root zone, if it was dug in quite a bit, would be over 100, which is excessive. So on the surface gives us enough warmth to secure things through a cold, cold night, and then buried in a little is very, very stimulatingly warm for tropical plants to get started. And for now, what we're going to do is lay out the whole surface in here. We'll be planting in here soon enough, but for now we're putting in crates of roots and propagation material as we go. So for example, these 2 bulb crates have root segments and runners from sea buckthorn that we are digging up for propagation and for sale. Trimmed up all the roots and put them into these crates in here to get some warmth from the sun, and hopefully from that compost heater start sprouting and grow, and then we can put them into a nursery bed. Same thing here. These are trimmings from our serviceberry from plants that we propagated and shipped this spring to folks. We snipped off side shoots and things that wouldn't fit in the box properly and communally potted them to get warm. Leftover big root geranium from shipping, mint root, there were little nuggets left over, and sorrel. These were trimmings. So this is all basically waste material from our shipping process, communally potted up or individually potted up. Not waste material, just little trimmings in excess, more shipmast roots. So we'll fill up these 2 sides with this propagation material. As soon as it's warm enough outside, they'll be able to be transplanted out, and we can return this to cucumbers and turmeric, or cucumbers and hot peppers, etc., etc. But really neat to see. This is a very, very low complexity thing to make. Again, I'll show at the very end here how this was all put together. $0. It's all waste material. It's shredded leaves, it's charcoal from our wood stove, it's bedding from the chicken coop, and it's a radiating heater that keeps this space protected in the winter. This high tunnel cost under $200 to build about 8 years ago, and it's still functional. You can make it even a lower cost by scavenging poly from local greenhouses or call local nurseries and see if you can get leftovers. Most of the time it's much bigger tunnels that they're replacing, and so you can find pieces that will fit over things like this. But you could also do this in a low tunnel if you needed to. I'll return to this space in about a week or so once we've got the rest of this filled out, and we'll do a tour of all the different things we're propagating in here before we get into the growing season. And we'll talk about how this continues to work. Does it hold that temperature? Does it dip down? The issue with these, the biggest single issue that I found with these is I set them up in ways where they're really functional right out of the gate, and then they run out of moisture and they stall out. So we're going to try to be very deliberate about really hydrating this throughout the next month or two to get us past the last threat of frost. But it's pretty wonderful to get that amount of heat, almost 120 Fahrenheit, almost 50 centigrade, just from the decomposition of waste material that needed to be cleared out of the chicken yard anyway. Shredded leaves from neighbors they were getting rid of anyway. Charcoal that's left over from heating our home anyway. That's the beauty of all this stuff. The waste material, value the marginal. The way it started was to begin taking loads of material away from the chicken yard. This is the coop bedding that needed to be cleared out anyway, dumping it in front of the high tunnel. Added a fair bit of mucky water, which I'll show in a moment, and queued it up so that it was ready to be put in and start this process. The walkway also had a ton of dried leaves that we could work with. And this is the compost bin before starting. Very simple system. It's a pallet suspended over a little pond underneath, and the first order of business is to figure out how much water is in there and what to work with. Lots and lots of water from the late winter, hydrating all of this carbon. I went through and screwed in the board in the front that holds the 2x4 welded wire together. Very simple structure. Then went into the chicken yard where we have been dumping the overall bedding from their coop, their compost heated bedding, and let them pick through it a little bit, but mainly extract it out. Wheelbarrow loads at a time with some mucky water from a trough that we were about ready to rinse out anyway. Add some extra nutrient and hydration. And this is our main filler, is the bedding with mucky water, a little bit of charcoal from our wood stove from the winter to soak up excess nutrient, and some shredded leaves that we had banked around the outside of the high tunnel. So I took some wet scoops of material from underneath the compost heater system to get the ball rolling, and that just went at it layer by layer. Wheelbarrow load of mucky material, a little bit of hydrated nutrient and some shredded leaves, a little bit of pure nitrogen in urine form, just to add a lot of fertility and fuel. Kind of messy as I went, but scraping up the walkway, taking wheelbarrow loads of bedding, really filled this thing up pretty quickly. This was about a 2-hour project, and then capped the walkway with uninoculated charcoal to walk on and crush a little bit further to increase the surface area and the absorption capacity, and then do a final scraping of the walkway with this charcoal to cap the compost heating system. So the last foot or so had a lot of carbon to absorb excess nutrient. And there it is, very simple system. The walkway in the area is relatively clean and organized. The main walkway in the space has been harvested out, and the compost heating system is up and running. Added a little bit of extra material in the walkway just to radiate some extra warmth as needed, a little bit closer to the crates. And the compost bin on the far end, this is what you saw in the earlier part of the video. Functional, absorbent, and ready to radiate warmth.